lot of people think dopamine is bad, that we need to detox from dopamine, and that it's destroying our motivation. But dopamine is actually what allows us to be motivated, and we can actually harness it and use it to propel us towards our goals and to overcome our bad habits. And so I used to be consumed by dopaminergic activities, and it was controlling me through video games, through social media, addictive food. I was able to figure out how to use it towards learning to enjoy eating healthy, working out, working towards my goals, and learning new things. And so in this video, I'm going to explain how the dopamine system evolved versus how it's being hijacked today. And then by understanding that, we'll know how to harness our dopamine and use it to build good habits. And then lastly, I'm going to share why most people fail during this process of trying to harness their dopamine. If you don't learn this, you're going to be like 99% of people who are controlled by social media, TV, addictive food. They would never have the motivation to actually improve their lives. But imagine being able to enjoy the hard work that will unlock everything that you want in life. That relationship, the career, the body. All these things are unlocked through understanding dopamine and harnessing your motivation. So let's talk about how dopamine evolved versus how it's being hijacked today. So just a little quick crash course on how dopamine works. It's a chemical in our brain and body that has a lot to do with our motivation and our pleasure. When we have high dopamine, we have a lot of motivation. When we have low dopamine, we feel unmotivated, we don't want to move, we're feeling sad. And so we have this sort of baseline level that's just constantly flowing through us. And when we engage in different activities, this level goes up or down. When we engage in things that require effort, dopamine actually gets created in our brain and body. And so we get this sort of steady rise in dopamine when we do things that require effort. And this is what largely dopamine looked like in the past with our ancestors who spent time building, who spent time harvesting, hunting, taking care of children. Their lives were full of things that required movement and effort. And that the dopamine system evolved to reward that. As they engaged in those things, they became motivated, they enjoyed it. The other reason dopamine increased for what they were doing is because their brains knew that this is something that was improving their life. It was fulfilling natural human desires of connecting to other people, contributing to the tribe, making progress, learning skills. Their brain knew this is actually improving our lives, so let's exert some dopamine. Let's motivate them to keep doing this. And so the problem nowadays with dopamine is we have different activities that are fulfilling these human desires. Things like connecting, things like contributing to a tribe. We feel that when we're playing video games that we're contributing. We feel like we're connecting to others through social media. We may feel that we're learning new skills as we're watching scrolling through different videos on TikTok. Now the problem with this is that instead of it requiring effort, like things did in the past, it's easy. It takes no effort, it's instantaneous. These videos are so highly stimulating that it causes this spike in dopamine. It makes us feel so good so quickly due to the newness of it, due to the sound, the video. But because it requires no effort, it's not creating new dopamine. And so the way our body sort of compensates after consuming all that dopamine is it crashes because it needs to replenish that dopamine somehow. And so the plan is to give our body time so that it can replenish that back to the normal level. But instead of giving our body time, we want to feel that spike again. So we keep scrolling. We keep doing whatever our addictive behavior is, trying to spike our dopamine, just continually depleting our body of our stores, or you could think of it as like storage of dopamine, so that we have very little left. And we find ourselves at this new lower baseline level of dopamine where we're not feeling motivated anymore to do things that would improve our life, because all we want to do is just feel better with those addictive things. So kind of just to summarize, the activities today are taking advantage of our innate human desires in a way that doesn't require effort, which is causing these problems in dopamine. So now that we understand this, we can kind of see what the solution is. And it's to engage in activities that fulfill our desires, but in a way that requires effort, just like our ancestors did. Because that way, we're creating dopamine instead of crashing, and we'll have this steady rise until we get back up to that baseline level and even beyond. Alright, so now we're talking about how to harness our dopamine to build good habits. So I'm going to talk about first how to know what good habits to build, and then I'm going to talk about how to actually start implementing that. So first, if you don't know what good habits to build, you can kind of get a clue by looking at what you enjoy about your dopaminergic activity. For example, if you like watching social media, pay attention to what you are actually watching. What is it that you enjoy? What value is it fulfilling in you? Is it fulfilling some need to learn a new skill? Is it connecting with other people? Is it entertainment? Once you figure this out, you can figure out how to fulfill that in the real world in a way that requires effort. Okay, so for example, with myself, I love to watch cooking videos on social media. And so I realized I can just cook myself. That's gonna not spike my dopamine, that's gonna actually create dopamine because it's requiring effort. And so I spent more time cooking for myself, and that fulfilled that sort of need and desire for entertainment and learning a new skill, and I did not feel the need as much to scroll on social media. Sort of the biggest replacement for myself was when I cut out video games, which was fulfilling a need for learning new skills, progressing, connecting with other people. I became a missionary, and then later replaced that with learning psychology and skills around helping other people understand how the mind works. And so it's going to be personal to you how your values are currently being fulfilled and how you can continue to fulfill them in a healthier way. Now, to get started with replacing this, you want to do it in the morning. Because in the morning, our dopamine is the highest, because during sleep, we're not consuming dopamine, but we're just replenishing that dopamine. So we feel the most motivated. So we want to start with whatever good habit we want to build. So maybe you want to start reading. So you get up, you're the most motivated, you start reading, that releases dopamine for you. Now your brain thinks, okay, this is good. This is improving our life. And so now the next day, you're even more motivated to read. And so slowly you build the amount of time you're engaging in that activity and slowly cut out your old dopaminergic habits. Alright, so lastly, I'm going to share why people fail this sort of simple process of changing and replacing their habits. And the reason most people fail is because it's very difficult when we're at this lower dopamine state to get back up to this sort of normal baseline level. It takes time for our brain to sort of get used to these new healthy habits. At first, you may not enjoy that new healthy habit as much, even though you know it's what's going to fulfill that kind of desire and value in your life. And that doesn't mean that it's not good for you, important for you. It just means right now your dopamine is really low and your brain is just kind of being controlled by those addictive things. This is where that sort of detox or dopamine fasting comes from. Because once you take a break from these things, over time, that dopamine will restore and you will enjoy those healthy habits. and you won't crave your old habits anymore. And this is what I found for myself now that I've filled my life with things that fill the important values and desires for me. I don't crave scrolling on social media or playing video games as much. I enjoy these different habits that I've built. So to summarize, our dopamine system evolved to help us work towards things that would improve our lives. These things used to always require effort, and they naturally increased our dopamine. Now, technology and different substances are taking advantage of our human desires, fulfilling them in a way that requires no effort, which is destroying our motivation and dopamine. We can overcome this by replacing them simply with things in the real world that fulfill our desires in a healthy way that doesn't mess with our dopamine. And we want to use any means necessary and any tool or strategy to help us get through that sort of detox period while our dopamine is so low. If you're wanting help implementing different strategies to get through that dopamine fast or detox, I would love to chat with you. And so you can click in the link in the description to set up a free chat with me. Otherwise, please check out my other videos about different tools to get through that period, and subscribe if you are interested in more videos about changing your habits.